Previously on the Jon Miles Series.
1988, 1989, we weren't the viable organization that we were in the past. There was some time in the late 80s that we formed a coalition with the Tucsonis Against Apartheid and Palestinian group. Things just moved on, and meanwhile, transitioning to the next big thing that was going on, I was friends with Brian Flagg and George Pettit, who were working at the soup kitchen, Casa Maria Soup Kitchen, and they had a political movement going. It was the Southern Arizona Coalition for the Homeless. So they used to participate in our protests and events, and we would participate in their protests and events. So I was more involved with the Southern Arizona Coalition for the Homeless. And what made it so easy for me to be involved in a lot of these movements is I didn't have a regular job as such. I was working for myself. So that meant I could take the time off and I could do these things. And the work that I missed, I can make it up on Saturday or Sunday. So, and I'd also gotten a pretty good account working, taking care of the grounds at a sorority house off on campus. So that was a big paying job that basically covered all the bills, and everything else I made was for other things, you know. So I had a lot of flexibility in my life and what I can do, and I think that's what got me to become a well-known person in the community, because I could go everywhere, you know. And then the Homeless Coalition was really great, and what it was doing, like Brian was from the Catholic Worker, and that's a whole nother story. I don't want to get into that, but you know, they live and work, you know, just for any clothes that come in or the food that comes in, and they get paid $5 a week. They're getting donations, and it's affiliated. Casa Maria was affiliated with the Catholic Church, so but we had the coalition had a lot of latitude. So what our thing was to bring public attention to the problem of homelessness. So we would do things like it was an active group. We would take over abandoned houses. We'd pry open the doors, break into the places, and set up, you know, homes for the homeless until the property owners got the police and they'd drive us out of there. You know, some people would get arrested. We'd go to court, and we were getting a lot of press, a whole lot of press. And this is basically what we wanted. We knew they weren't going to let us stay in these places. So we did this quite a bit, and you, even though I was talking to you earlier, you don't remember there, but I would drag you along with me too, and we were taking over some of these places, and not everybody was taking over, moving in, but after we opened the doors, a few people were going to move in, but the rest of us were outside in support. And I remember we had these milk crates that we get there, and I can remember you with your chessboard out there playing chess with all these tramps, and you had a nickname they called you the Kid Tramp, you know. And I'm surprised that you didn't remember that, and then you were playing a little cards with them too, so that, you know, the tramps like that, you know, because they're just homeless. They live in the park all day and sleep down by the river or whatever, you know. Not that our rivers don't have any water in them here, of course, unless it rains. So I got involved with that, and Churla, meanwhile, was kind of faded away. And then in 1994, well, before I go to 1994, that we used to have marches, homeless marches. We'd take over the streets and march in the streets. The police were pretty good. They would never run us off the street because we had numbers, you know, and they'd let us stay on the street. They'd provide escort for us until we got to where we were going. Then they'd try to chew us out, and we just, you know, shrug our shoulders at them, you know, tough, you know, it's a public street, you know. And, I mean, we never really got in trouble for it, you know. Of course, they're saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. The hell if we do, we just did it, you know. So, and I was good at that because for the farm worker training, I learned on marches about march discipline. When the people that are marching, you're marching for a cause, for a reason. Don't do anything stupid, like break windows or trash things or destroy things, because that discredits what the point you're trying to make. So I had people that helped me on that to keep everybody in line, and everybody stayed in line, and also to keep people like, we wouldn't completely block the road, we would block maybe one lane of traffic, so traffic could get by, so we just made sure everybody was safe and wasn't going to get hit by a car. So we were pretty effective, but I led that. So there was a group starting up that, and I didn't go to some of their initial meetings because I had enough to do. So, they were going to have a march. So Brian was going to those meetings. So Brian said, well, heck, he said, Jon Miles is good at these marches. And most of the people at Derechos Humanos Coalition knew me because back in the farm workers days, and they, yeah, great, we'll have him here. And then plus, when I was living at a farm worker house, it was right next to Monzo Area Council and some of these Mesilla organizing projects, some of these Chicano things that were going on. So I used to hang out there a lot too. So they were real happy to have me on board. And what it was such, it's such a good organization. It was a Chicano organization and run by women, brown women, and there wasn't white people, being kind of paternalistic and doing all the work. So I figured, great, I didn't have to take a leadership role in it. I could do the rallies and the marches that we had. So I did that. So I liked the group so much that I figured, well, I stayed with that group. So that became my next big thing. The other thing I was involved when, previous to that, but wasn't a big deal, there was a colonel who used to attend the protests or the vigils we'd have every Thursday, the peace vigils at the front of the federal building. And he was a retired Army colonel, and he was against war, and they were starting a group called Veterans for Peace, or a chapter here, and he knew I was a veteran and wanted me to know if I wanted to join Veterans for Peace, and I told him yes. So I had to give him my DD 214 form, to show that I was a veteran, and then he sent that in, and we formed a chapter here in Tucson, and I was one of the founding members of Chapter 13 of Veterans for Peace. So, but Colonel Burkholder was he was the chair of that, and we had an active group of other veterans, a few Second World War veterans, Korean veterans, and then some Vietnam veterans. So Jim was pretty much ran that, and I participated a lot. We would go to schools and talk to schools about the military and about war, and what Veterans for Peace means, et cetera, et cetera. So then Jim, Colonel Burkholder, had a falling out with National, because at that time there was the Bosnian, Croatia problem over there, and the National was taking more of a humanitarian approach rather than a political approach, which we were supposed to do. We were supposed to be political to a certain point because Veterans for Peace is a 501c3, so there's some things you can do and some things you can't. So we knew where the line was, but we liked the educational part, where we didn't want to be this thing where we'd use all our resources just bringing over some, Bosnian, child that was injured in the war over there, and to do medical care and stuff here. So Jim kind of dropped out, and so I kind of assumed the leadership, but we had other good people in there too. So I was doing that at the same time I was doing, Derechos Humanos, the Derechos Humanos Coalition. Well, gradually, Derechos Humanos, we had like Isabel Garcia, she and Lupe Castillo were heading up the group. So finally, in 2000, the year 2000, we were having border summits, and this is the various actions on different things that happened along the border, because basically the goal was to human rights for everybody, whether you have documents or not, but mostly dealing with undocumented people, but then abuses by the Border Patrol, by the police, et cetera, whenever there's an article in a newspaper that's anti-undocumented people, somebody would write a op-ed piece or letters to the editor, we'd counter it, and we'd have events that were really well attended by the community. So this is what we're doing. Then we would have rallies in the park, and we'd have marches, and which were very successful. We draw a lot of people out, and then to move ahead, because the work was pretty much the same over the years. Then in 2006, there was a congressman named Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin, and he was pushing legislation to start getting these what do you call them, these camps to round up illegal people. What he called them, we said we don't like the word illegal, but he said illegal people, and put them in these detention camps and then deport them. So there was a radio guy in L.A. started talking about having a nationwide rally against this, and asking all undocumented people, everybody to hit the streets and rally against this. So it worked here in Tucson. So we knew we used to do a Cesar Chavez holiday march, and we did one like the end of March when Chavez's birthday, and usually we had 300-400 people would show up. And this one we had like a couple of thousand people. We did it at Pueblo High School, and like the whole football field was full of people. And I mean, they had all these people. I couldn't believe it, And meanwhile, we had permits from the city to do this, So we did it. And I couldn't. Why? Where did we get this big crowd? We must be doing some good PR. Well, then when a rally was called by other human rights groups, there were a few others sprung up after us, about having a big event for April 10th, which was the call nationwide. So we participated in that. So we said, yeah. So I basically took over the peacekeeping, et cetera, that was going to go on there, because we had word that there was these couple of guys that used to go around trying to intimidate, and they would burn Mexican flags and try to cause riots. So we had to be ready for that. So I had a lot of people working for me. I had people who had to stay at the park where the rally was, and then because this is where the guy had threatened to burn another Mexican flag. And then we had the big march that started at St. John's Church down in Ajo and 12th. And when we were convening that rally, I mean, I was freaked out, there's so many people. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it's really, I have a photo that I'll have to show you that, I was refusing to have a cell phone. I didn't want any of this stuff. So the cops were kind of upset because they wanted to be in touch with me all the time, So I somebody loaned me their cell phone, to use. So somebody caught me with a picture with me, there, and I had my vest on, and then there I'm on the cell phone, and they're blackmailing me. Hey, Miles is using a cell phone, And it was actually pretty worthless, because you can't really hear when the cops would call you or something. But so the cops realized there were tens of thousands of people there, that the route that we had, we had like just part of the road. So they said they were gonna close the road completely for us, everything, both ways. So the route was going to be about maybe 2.5 miles, the route. So, and we had to be wary of some of the anarchists the anarchists wanted to block some major intersections that we had to pass through, and the cops were working with us saying that they were going to block the intersections so we could get through. But as soon as we got through, that they'd let traffic resume. Well, what the anarchists wanted to do, they wanted to stop everybody at the intersection and have a big jam, a people jam there, so traffic would be shut all over. So we didn't want that, because again, we had a message we wanted to get out publicly, and we didn't want the news to just pick up on blocking traffic. So we knew that in the anarchists, there weren't very many of them. They dressed in black and they were wearing these bandanas, and they're pretty obvious, but there's maybe 10 or 12 of them. So what it was, I had people my people stayed, and I had good people. I had trainings for them. So I had about maybe 10 of my people at that intersection for when to wait there while we came through to, in case they tried to stop, just to keep everybody moving. So they did. So I managed to get back there by the time the anarchists got there because somebody called me. So I had somebody else leading the march. Kat Rodriguez was like up in the front. She was good leading the march. So I got back, and of course the anarchists wanted to stop, and block traffic. We just kept people going. We almost walked right over them. So they had no choice. We had a mass of people just move them down the road. One of the cops told me later he was really impressed by what we did. We got to the park. Of course, this guy, Roy Warden, and his small army of haters were there at the park.
Name and occupation?
Okay, my name is Roy Warden. I'm a full-time political activist here in Tucson, Arizona.